It's been a few weeks since I've been able to get an episode published. So, we're going to start today with a story that's near and dear to my heart, one that I've been saving for a special episode. And that's going to be a story about an internship that I had. It was my very first internship. I almost didn't call it an internship. I wanted to call it my first summer job because it was unrelated largely to what I was studying in school. And on this internship, I worked on understanding the processes and procedures and was able to add $500,000 annually to the company's bottom line by helping them better understand what was going on. So the company that I was working for this summer was a machining facility. They machined ductile iron parts for like brakes and valves and stuff. They had a whole bunch of metal lathes and mills, manual ones and CNC mills that were being used to manufacture parts on demand. The problem that was being circulated between departments was scheduling was frustrated that production could never keep up with the numbers they expected. Production was frustrated that they couldn't keep up with the numbers that they were supposed to keep up with on paper. To them, it didn't look like it was realistic. It didn't look practical. And if you went back to the engineering office and said, where did these part per hour numbers come from? Well, they didn't know either. You see, what had happened is the shop had grown at such a rapid pace, and the turnover corresponded to an informational gap. The part per hour calculations that were handed down were never corrected for system and process changes. These changes existed and they developed, but no one knew exactly what they were. No one had identified them. They were too close to the problem, which is why a green engineering student like myself, fresh out of my freshman year, was almost ideal for solving the problem. And this was even more true because I was really into systems and processes and didn't want to do a job where I didn't understand what was going on. Now, they didn't hire me to solve this problem. They hired me to sort fixtures that you would bolt parts to before the CNC machine went about, machining the part. I finished organizing all of the different fixtures, stamping them, putting them in a spreadsheet, and organizing them from most used to least used based off of elevation. And anyway, I finished what they expected would take a whole summer in about a month. That meant they didn't know what to do with me. And I had recognized that there was the system problem going on. So I sort of volunteered to investigate on my own to see if I could make it better. I got myself a stopwatch, a clipboard, and a pen, and I started walking around the manufacturing floor, timing operators as they would switch parts in and out, manage the machines, and do quality control checks. And this is what no one else was seeing. When an operator stops to do a quality control check, and let's say they do it every 10 parts to make the numbers easy, and it takes a minute to run a part. So 10 minutes is what transpires in between quality control checks, right? Well, they go over to the quality control testing equipment. They are looking for tolerances and stuff. And let's say it takes them 20 minutes to do that. Well, you just added 2 minutes per part by stopping the production to go do the quality control check. Now, that might very well be important because those 10 parts, 20 parts that you could have made during that time may have drifted out of tolerance if you didn't check it and then correct it and keep going. But that quality control time was not being captured in the part per hour number, which was fine for the parts that ran for long times, but for a lot of the shorter running parts, it was devastating. And I really can't blame them for not recognizing that this wasn't integrated into the parts per hour numbers, because early on, when there were like 3 machines, there were 2 quality control employees who would take the parts, measure the tolerances, and the operator would continue running their respective machines. So the original part per hour calculations didn't take into account that the operator stops their production to go do the quality control check. As they added more machines, they added more operators, they didn't add more quality control staff, and they started shifting the quality control checks to the operators without correcting their production numbers. That was it. That was all that needed to happen in order to add an additional $500,000 to their annual bottom line. Using some of my spreadsheet skills, I developed a tool that allowed them to, without actually knowing the quality control time, get a much better estimate based off of the various trials that I timed for their parts per hour. They implemented that tool right away. And I made a recommendation that for very short running parts, quality control staff step in order to keep the operator moving, and they take over the quality control checks. Or if a part was running behind schedule, maybe a quality control manager or staff member can come in and start taking on the quality control checks while the machine keeps running in order to keep up pace with scheduling. I came back a year later and they were still using the tools and the processes that I had helped bring to light. And their on time percentage for projects was significantly improved. And the amount of revenue that they were generating also reflected that improvement. And it's interesting because all I did was investigate the systems that were there and really try to understand them. It's really hard in our day-to-day to take some time to reflect and think on the systems and processes at home and at work. But if we find an opportunity to really understand what's going on a process level, well, we can make changes or implement strategies that are optimal given the gifts that are in front of us, given the processes, systems, and circumstances that we are presented with. This is true for your money. This is true for budgeting. This is true for investing. This is true for mutual funds. And that's what we're going to cover in the main topic.